Hello everybody, welcome to class today. I'm Alex and we're going to start standing upright on the mat to begin. So let's find a spot where you're roughly in the center of the mat and finding your feet where they're hip distance apart, so just locating your hip bones and sort of running your hands down just to make sure that your big toe, second toe are in line with your hip bones. And then from here, let's start to just lengthen up. So Pilates is all about trying to lengthen through the body and create a bit of space and alignment for the muscles and joints. So finding that in our standing position, where you're reaching the ribs away from the hips and then also getting some length through the neck, so the ears away from the shoulders, and just relaxing your arms down by your side. So from this position, we're going to do a couple of standing roll downs to warm up. So we'll take a breath in to prepare. Then as you breathe out, start to roll forward from the top of the spine. So it's like you're bringing your chin down towards your chest. Then you're rolling your chest forwards. Peeling over just as far as you comfortably can to begin with. Take a breath in at the bottom. And then breathe out and start to roll back up from the lower spine this time. So it's the tail that starts to roll underneath. You rebuild the pelvis. It's like the pelvis is reversing. Then you bring your ribs on top of your hips. And then your head on top of your shoulders. Let's breathe in here at the top. Just try to lengthen up a little bit there. And then breathe out and come down again. Chin goes down towards the chest. And starting to think about what part of your back's moving. So we're about at the mid-back now. That's rolling forwards. Now we're at the lower back. And then at the bottom, maybe you could hang a little bit closer towards the floor. Let's take 2 breaths here. And as you breathe out, just allow the neck to lengthen. 1 more. Try to allow the tissues to let go. Your head's like a bowling ball in a stocking, just lengthening out the spine and the spinal muscles. Let's breathe in. As we breathe out, start to come back up again from the tail. So it's like the tail starts to roll down underneath you. A little bit of lift in the abdominals at the front to help bring you up. And then from here, coming up, rebuilding the ribs on top of the hips, head on top of the shoulders, and then just coming up really tall. From here, we're going to come down on the mat to lie on our back and do some work to waken up through the core. Okay, so lying on our back, making sure the knees and the hips are in line. And then from here, we're just going to find a neutral position in the back. So that is where your pubic bone and navel are level and you've restored all the natural curves of your spine. So when we come to do our abdominal work, we're working from a neutral position. So that's where the pubic bone and navel are level. And what we're going to do is curl back pubic bone towards the chest so the belly button goes down, and then send the pubic bone away so the belly button lifts up. Just do a few of these here and just noticing what happens in the lower back. Comes into the floor as the pubic bone curls back and comes away from the floor as the pubic bone goes forwards. So this is a really nice feeling if you can sort of keep it to just the bones of the joints without the glutes activating or the fronts of the thighs, just sort of mobilizing actually through that area. And then what we're going to do is stop in between the two. So where your pubic bone and your belly button are completely level, and that's your neutral position. So whatever you feel there through the lower back is your natural arch. If you feel it to be quite arched, you might like to soften the ribs down at the front so you get a bit of contact of the back of the ribs through onto the mat. That's where they should be actually. You should feel the back of the ribs to be heavy, the natural arch through the lower back, and then heaviness on the tail again. Now from here, we're going to start to work through the core and actually challenge this position. So lift up through the center line and then bring one leg up to tabletop position. Bring that back down and then lift the other leg up to tabletop position. So for this exercise, we're just going to keep alternating legs, but be super precise on making sure the hips don't move or your spine doesn't move. So the pubic bone and navel remain level, and also your 2 hip bones on the sides remain level. So you could put your hands on your hips and feel what's happening underneath. Pilates often looks to be quite slow, but the reason why is because you're really precise about the movement. We can speed this up as we progress on past beginner level, but for now is really, can we move the legs without any loss of control? Be really honest. If you're finding even the tiniest move underneath your fingertips, that's totally cool. Just go a little bit slower. Let's do 4. Checking out the shoulders as well, and the throat and the neck, making sure we're not getting too much activation through there. Last one. Let's keep that leg at tabletop, and then we're going to lift up even more through this center line and bring your other leg up as well. And then from here, send one leg down, tap the toes on the mat, and lift back up, and then to the other side. So we're just challenging the internal core with the weight of the leg, keeping that pubic bone and navel really still. So here you could imagine you've got a champagne glass resting over your pubic bone, full to the brim with champagne, and without spilling any, just finding this movement of the femur. Can this leg go down and up without it tugging the spine? Can the abdominals remain flat and drawn in, really sense of up and in with the tummy? And then not to ask too much, but trying to relax through the upper body as you do this. So the armpits, the throat, right through the front here, the neck, really relaxed. And the heat starts to build underneath that lower belly button. Let's do 4, 3, 2, and 1. With control, bring one leg down to the mat, then the other leg down to the mat, and then you could safely let go. From here, let's go into bridging. So we're going to start to curl your pubic bone towards your chest, like you just did before, but continue to roll up through your spine, stepping down into your feet, and coming up until the weight's in the tops of the shoulders. At the top, breathe in, and then breathe out. Start to roll yourself back down from the mid-back, the lower back, and then roll to neutral, guys, at the bottom, all the way. Where the pubic bone and navel are level, let go of all the muscles through the pelvis and the legs, and then you re-engage. Press through the feet, lifting the hips, come up into the weights in the shoulders again, and then let's roll back down. Upper back, mid-back, lower back, going to neutral, let go. You can take a moment there, because then you can get a really lovely re-engagement of the pelvis coming up. And making sure the hips are always higher than the ribs. So often we can lift a bit higher in the ribs, which takes the spine into an overarch. We always want to come up to neutral. It could be like you've got a ski slope from your knees to your shoulders. And then from here, coming back down, upper back, mid back, lower back, and neutral. Let's come back up. Really starting to sort of feel each part of the spine move as smoothly as possible. Coming back down, and if you're feeling any sort of tetchy points where you kind of lose the control or not as smooth, just go a little bit slower through that section. I always go back to beginner exercises because it's a real sort of time to be able to check in with yourself and feel what you might need to sort of iron out, give a bit of love to. We'll do 2 more here. Pressing through the feet, lifting through the hips, checking with the ribs that they're not flaring up. Also knees in line with hips, that they're not flaring out. Let's breathe out, come back down. Rolling through that lower back as well, neutral at the bottom, let go. Last one, let's curl up. Press down through your feet. Come on at the top, guys, and we're going to do some little pulses here. So you can imagine you've got strings pulling the hips up, and we're going to lift for 10, 9, 8, 7. Use your feet as well. Press through the earth. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Soften. Upper back, mid back, lower back, pelvis, all the way to neutral. Good work. Let's bring your hands behind your head now and come up to do a really perfect chest lift. So the hands are interlaced like this, and your thumbs can run down your neck to help support the neck. That champagne glass is still on the pubic bone or on the front of the pelvis. We don't want to spill that towards us as we curl up. Just preparing the upper body so the elbows come in your peripheral vision and shoulders slot down in the sockets. Try to keep them there as you curl up. So breathe in to prepare and breathe out to curl the chest bone up towards the thighs. Keeping pelvis still, shoulders in sockets. Inhale to lay back down. And exhale to come back up from the chest bone. So the chest bone turns and you come back down. So it's quite nice sometimes to put your fingertips quite strongly onto your chest bone and use them as a guide to curl up. So keep going there. You can choose to use your fingertips to help out if you want, or you might not. You might like to keep both hands supporting the hip. But it's really sort of getting this rib cage to turn to initiate the movement. The hands are behind the head to support the skull and the neck, so no need to lift with your chin poke forwards. Keep the head, the skull, the brain heavy in your hands. And dive that chest bone up towards the thighs. Let's do 5 here together. Keep that neutral lower back. Champagne glass on the hips. 4. Soften the neck and the throat. Lift chest bone. That's where you really want to initiate that curl from. Let's do 2. Have a little glance at your abs. Can you draw them around the hips? Up and in. Last one. Let's do some little pulses here, guys. Leading from the breastbone up. Not too high. Just really turning the ribs. It's like that breastbone's coming down and the shoulders are coming off the floor. Let's do 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. How are those shoulders going? Keep them down. Last one. And then lengthen the spine down to the mat to finish. Really good. Let's turn on the side and do our side lying position. So just like we sort of found a neutral spine on your back, you want to find neutral on the side as well. And that's where your bottom shoulder, let me move my hair, bottom shoulder comes down into the socket and the top shoulder's down into the socket as well. So we're here, but then also we're nice and long in the spine. So we're going to come to do some leg circles. We don't want to do them from this position here. Spine's bowing, shoulders are collapsing. Can we arrange the shoulders so we're nice and spacious across here and stable? And then also lengthen the spine as well so that your spine's not bowing down. It'll be really great for some work for your bottom obliques. I call this the house for the mouse. So as if a little mouse could run through there, you want to stay lifted. And then what we're going to do is bring your top leg up. You could put your top hand on your hip if you like. And then from here, breathe out, send your leg behind you, behind this hip joint, and then forwards. So just like we did earlier, lifting the legs to tabletop, we're just replicating that, but on the side. It's a harder orientation to be in because you've only got this skinnier edge to rest on rather than your whole back. But really finding, can I bring my knee behind my hip joint without my shoulders tugging, without my lower back moving? Pubic bone and navel are level here, so you're neutral in your spine. And because your legs are ball in a socket, it should have this freedom of motion, moving forwards and back. But when you're just starting out, I know it's super tough to sort of get that differentiation between the two. Dissociation, it's called, hip dissociation. And it's just something to practice as a beginner, the precision of this. How far back can I get my leg without my shoulder, top shoulder wanting to tug forwards? Or does my back want to arch to help the leg go back? You want to keep sort of zipped up and in through here and just learn to work the back of the leg and the bum to bring the leg back and actually get some stretch in the front hip. Let's take this into circles. Let's go backwards first. So the leg swings back behind the knee, behind the hip. Bring it up forwards and then back around. And go as big as you like, but as long as you've got control. So maybe keep that top hand on your hip. If you're finding that actually you're getting some movement of your body, it's totally cool. Just make it a little bit smaller. The circles are a tiny bit smaller so you've got control. It's really important in the early days for your nervous system to pattern. You want to create the most sort of correct and positive pattern possible in the beginning while you're learning. Let's do one more. And then we're going to reverse, lift the leg up, back and around and through. Nice and still in the trunk. How's that bottom shoulder going? Is that still down and away from the ear? Have you still got your house for your mouse? Let's do 3, 2, and last one. Relax that leg down. You can clear that lactic acid out if you like. I highly recommend it. It's not a nice feeling to be sitting there. And then what we're going to do is a really lovely one for your upper body and your posture. So both hands come behind the head, interlace the fingers, always support the skull. And we're going to twist the chest towards the ceiling, opening across the breastbone, reaching your elbow points away from each other, and then rotate back forwards. Quite nice to breathe in as you come up and then exhale into it. And you can really sort of yawn into this one. So getting this opening, reaching back, reaching to the edges, and then coming forwards. Let's do one more here. Yawn and reach, kind of indulgent, and coming back through. Let's stay facing each other. Just turn to the other end of your mat to do your other side. And interlace the fingers behind the head. Let's check out this shoulder to begin with, your bottom shoulder. Can you keep that down into the socket and keep as much space as possible for your neck? And then top shoulder down as well. Make sure your top hip's away. You might like to use your hand to send that away. Little house for the mouse under here. And then the top leg lifts. And then from here, we're going to bring the leg back behind. Knee crosses behind the hip joint and forwards. Heel bone goes back and forwards. You could imagine you're pressing like a wall back behind you, so there's a sense of something you're pushing into. Keeping long through your trunk, pubic bone and navel level. Shoulders stacked on top of each other. Don't let that top shoulder get tugged around. Practicing your precision. Got to get these principles down, the principles of movement, to really enhance the body. That's really what it is. It's about kind of getting this whole idea of hip dissociation, which is the main principle of this exercise. Can I dissociate my leg from my hip socket? There's also core control going on here because we're having to balance the spine and neutral. Should we take this into circles? Let's go for it. Leg goes back, up, around, forwards. Breathe out, breathe in. Nice and still. If you've done this class a few times now, maybe practice going a little bit bigger, but without sacrificing your form. Remember, we want the positive patterns to be created. Let's do 2 more here. There's no point doing dodgy ones every time because that's just what you're going to learn. Your body's going to learn to do. Reverse, back, up and around. Super still in your body. Top shoulder relaxed. How's that bottom shoulder going? You could press down through that bottom leg to help give you some support. Let's do 3, 2, and last one. Relax the leg down, bang, bang, bang on the glute. Hands come behind the head, shoulders down in their sockets, and let's turn through here, this rib cage. The bottom ribs, they turn, and they're leading the way, rather than my arm. Keep your arm in line with the shoulder. Yawn back, and coming forwards. And back. So in the early days of getting to know your body, it's really about differentiating, getting to know it. Actually, I can keep my hips facing forwards and I can twist my ribs back. Just creating that awareness And then as we become more advanced, we start to integrate. So you get to a place where you sort of do a whole hour session where you know exactly what's going on in your body, you're controlling it, but it's flowing for a full hour. Let's do one more of these. Indulge in it, guys. Reach back. And let's come forwards. From here, we're going to come to all fours. So coming to where your knees are underneath your hips and your hands are directly underneath your shoulders. So we're in this position here. And making sure your shoulders are down in their sockets. Often with this next one, what tends to happen is we come to here. So practicing actually pushing down into your hands, your shoulders down into their sockets, and your neutral spine position. Pubic bone and navel level. Ribs up and in. So you've got your natural sort of, it's called kyphosis in the mid-back, but you could kind of see it as like almost like a little hunch. Through the mid-back, you've got your natural dip in your neck, your head's in line, and you've got your natural arch in your lower back. So that is your all fours position, neutral. And then from here, we're going to send left arm and right leg out. So we're lying on our back with our feet hip distance apart, knees hip distance apart. And we want to find a position where we're in a neutral spine. So that's where your natural curves of your spine are restored. And from here, we're going to use our core muscles and work the core. So finding neutral is where your belly button and your pubic bone are level. So to find that, let's do a little tip forwards and back of the pelvis. So you carry your pubic bone towards your chest. And then you send your pubic bone away. And then curling it back. So when you're curling it back, you might feel your lower back touch into the mat. And then when you're sending your pubic bone away, you feel your lower back go into an arch. So they're both very normal and natural. And actually it's quite a nice exercise to soften the joints through that area. So as you're doing this, try not to clench your bum or your legs. Your bum should never lift off the floor. It's just rolling the pelvis forwards and back. And then guys, from here, let's stop between the two. So where your pubic bone and navel are level, in between those two positions, and that's your neutral spine. Whatever curve you've got in your lower back, there is your natural curve. If you feel like it's a bit more than what you'd normally have, what you could do is soften the ribs down at the front so you get more of a connection of the back of the ribs into the floor. And then from here, we're going to challenge this neutral spine position. So you get an internal lift of the core. It's like you're drawing up and inside you without any change of the trunk. And then lift one leg up to tabletop position. Let's bring that back down. And then lift the other leg up to tabletop position. And back down. So we're just alternating legs here. As you're doing this, making sure your pubic bone and navel are level, but also your two hip bones on either side are level. So you could put your hands on your hip bones if you like, just to make sure that you've got no movement going on underneath the hips. And we're being really precise, so not even the tiniest little micro movement of that hip joint. You want it to stay really still. If you need to go a bit slower, you can, to really pattern the movement. Having a successful run at it now, so that when you come to do this next time, your body will remember it and you would have made some gains. Let's do 4, 3, getting this internal lift of the core, 2, and 1. Let's leave that leg there at tabletop. Breathe in. As you breathe out, keep the pelvis really still, lift up through that internal line, and then bring your other leg up as well. So let's imagine now you've got a champagne glass on your pubic bone. Pubic bone and navel are level, so it's a perfect tabletop for that champagne glass. And then from here, we're going to challenge this control of the core, bringing one leg down and then back up. And then the other leg down and back up. And starting to get this feeling of, okay, I'm neutral, I can feel my core is on as my leg goes down. I can maybe turn my leg in the socket down and up. And actually that's what this is about, is hip dissociation. Can we move the legs without any effect in the lower back? We want that lower back to be protected. And we want the core to be strong enough to be able to stabilize the spine whilst the legs do their thing. Checking in with the neck and the throat. Are they nice and relaxed? Armpits, not gripping. Really making this work come here, underneath the belly. Let's do 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's gently place one leg down, then your other leg down, then you can let go of your core. Good work. From here, we're going to come into a chest lift. So the fingers interlace behind the head. And really make sure you're interlacing them so they're like that, and your thumbs are running down your neck to support your neck. So coming to find a perfect chest lift or abdominal curl. We call it chest lift because it really just helps you to initiate from the chest bone, just in the name of the exercise. So hands behind the head, elbows in your peripheral vision, and just slotting the shoulders down in your socket so you're arranged quite nicely in your upper body. And we've still got our champagne glass over the pelvis, so that's going to stay nice and still. Let's breathe in, breathe out, curl the chest bone up towards the thighs, and then coming back down. And coming back up, lifting the chest to the thighs, and back down. Keeping the shoulders arranged in your sockets as you're curling up. And supporting your skull with your hands. So you don't have to feel like you need to lead with your chin poke forwards. You want to actually let your head be heavy and you move from the chest bone. And you're aiming to get those shoulder blades off the floor without the pelvis curling back, tipping that champagne on you. Keep that level. And mobilizing through the mid-back. So your abdominals work really well when the spine can move, and vice versa. When the abdominals activate really well, the spine gets better movement. Let's do 5 more here. Turning through the ribs. And actually what's really helpful is to put the fingertips on the breastbone and help that slide down. So strong fingertips down directly on the chest to guide that chest bone down. Let's do the last 3. Last 2. And last 1. Everyone, let's hold at the top together and do 10 little pulses, little lifts up with the chest bone to the thighs. 10, 9, look down at your abdominals, see if you can draw them in and around the hips. 5, 4, soften the neck. 3, turn the ribs. 2, 1, and then lengthen the spine back down. Really good. Let your arms rest down by your side. You could do a little side to side with the neck there if you felt like maybe that activated a bit too much. And then from here, let's come into bridging. So we're going to curl pubic bone towards the chest, stepping down into the feet and roll up through your spine until the weight's in the tops of the shoulders. And let's breathe out to roll the spine back down, coming through the mid-back, the lower back, and to neutral at the bottom, guys. Let go. Let go of the glutes, the legs. Find where your pubic bone and navel are level. And then from here, let's curl back up. Pubic bone towards the chest, stepping down into your feet, coming up to the tops of the shoulders. Breathe in. And then breathe out. Let's roll yourself back down through the upper back, the mid-back, the lower back, all the way to neutral. So this one, today, we're using to really find even and smooth movement through the spine, just to help you get sort of in tune with your spine. So where are you moving? Can we move the upper back first, then the mid-back, then the lower back, then neutral, really evenly. Curling back up, being a little bit aware of the feet and the backs of the thighs to help you lift. As you're coming up, guys, watch you don't lift too much through the ribs and flare, arching the lower back or the whole back. Keep that down. Hips are higher than the ribs always, and you could imagine there's like a ski slope from your knees to your shoulders. And then you breathe out, let's roll back down. Through the lower back to neutral. And then let's peel it back up. Stepping into the feet, rolling the spine. Coming up until the weight's in the top of the shoulders. Let's take a breath in and out, coming down. Smoothly. Upper back. Mid back. Lower back. Neutral. Peeling back up again. And if you feel like actually there's some parts that are maybe feel a bit tetchy, that jump a little or is not so smooth, slow down through that section and really teach that to soften the tissues. Soften through that tetchy spot. So every time you're sort of recreating a healthier movement pattern. Let's do 2 more. Rolling down, lengthening away as well as you're coming down. And last one. Let's hold together at the top. So the weight's nice and flush in the tops of the shoulders, the ribs are down, hips are up. And imagine we've got strings. We're going to pull the strings up to lift the hips. Up. Let's do 10, 9, press through the feet, 8, soft through the jaw, 7, 6, 5, 4, press through the hands if you want as well, 3, and the feet, 2, 1, and let's roll yourself down, upper back, middle back, lower back, and to neutral. From here, we're going to roll on our sides, so finding our side lying position. So we want to find our neutral spot, our neutral position in our body on the side as well. So hands come behind the head, and you just make sure this bottom shoulder stays down and away from the ear, so you're sort of arranged nicely in the upper body. So hands come behind the heads. Can we slot that bottom shoulder down? So we've got some space here for the organs and the throat, the neck, rather than being in this collapsed position. So you lift yourself up, keep that shoulder down, and check out the top one as well. Make sure they're on top of each other. Hip bones are on top of each other. And then also we want to get some length in the spine. So again, we're not kind of collapsed here. We're going to do leg circles in a moment. We're not going to do them from a collapsed position. We're lifted in the upper body, lengthened in the entire trunk. And then it's like you've got a house for the mouse that can crawl underneath here. You want to be lifted in those lower abdominals and your obliques. And then we'll lift the top leg up to the height of the hip. And then from here, in fact, let's keep our hands on our hip bones. We're going to send the knee back behind you and then bring it forwards. So keeping your body really still and just finding this movement of your leg. You could imagine you're pressing your heel back on a wall, just sliding the wall back. So you've got some feedback there for the back of the thigh and the bum. Keeping a neutral spine, so that pubic bone and navel level. Your spine beautiful and long. And just moving this leg back in the socket and forwards. Your legs are ball in a socket. Technically, it should be super free. It should have freedom of motion to move without any tugging of your lower back, arching in your lower back, tugging or shifting forwards in your shoulder. Can we keep the body super still? Just find that movement in the leg. How's that bottom shoulder going? Is it still down and away from the ears? Let's take this into circles, guys. So bring the leg back, behind the hip joint, up, forwards and round. You could use a light fingertip touch out in front if you like, for a little bit of support, but not too much. You want to be able to hold this movement in your trunk. Hold the stability in your trunk so you're getting your core control. Then we're getting hip dissociation with the leg. This leg's free to roam in the socket, but with your control. Let's reverse it. Forwards, back, up and around. Keep the breath flowing. I haven't cued too much on the breath yet today. I just find that if you're sort of a beginner, taking on all these principles and the movement's kind of enough. As long as your breath is flowing and constant. Not want to worry too much about it. As we progress on, I'll cue more in future videos. Let's do 3, 2, and 1. Relax that leg down. You can bang the glute if you like, clear the lactic acid. You probably want to get rid of that. And then hands come behind the head. We're going to do a really lovely one for your upper body and posture. It feels really nice across the chest. So, supporting the neck, as always, we're going to twist from these bottom ribs. So the bottom ribs turn. You turn to face the ceiling or the sky, wherever you are. Split across the chest and the elbow points. And then rotate yourself forwards. So the pelvis stays reasonably still, facing forwards, and you're going to rotate and face the ceiling. And coming back. Quite a nice one to sort of indulge into at the back here. Yawning. Yawn into it a bit, guys, and try to find sort of the edges of this rotation. And back. Let's do 2 more. Rotating, yawn into it. It's really quite a passive, lovely one for your posture. Last one. Good one to do in the mornings as well before a big day of sitting down at a desk. Let's stay facing each other and we're going to come around, so just to the other side of your mat, and we're going to do the other side. So, checking out that bottom shoulder, can you slot it down in its socket, top shoulder as well, down in its socket, and then from here, top hip nice and long, you can literally take hold of it, send it away, and then just make sure you've got a little house for the mouse under here so he can crawl through. And then our top leg lifts up to the height of the hip, flex the foot, and then from here we're going to send the foot back behind you and in front. Pelvis stays still, body stays still. And the art of this one is really, can you get this thigh bone behind this hip bone without your back arching or your top shoulder flinging forwards? Having this control in your trunk, it's called core control. So it's core work. And it's hip dissociation. Can we move the thigh bone in the hip socket? When you start to dissociate really well, it becomes much easier to get your glutes activated and your hamstrings activated. So we're training our muscles in a really nice correct alignment of our body. We're connecting our mind into our body, trying to really get that precision of the movement. And these ones never get old. We can progress them on with a straighter leg, but really, even as an advanced mover, practicing these is just really great. You can sort of really figure out if your hips are a bit tight that day, or if you need to improve the mobility of the pelvis, the leg I should say, in the pelvis. Let's take this into circles. Back up and around. So if you're feeling like actually that's a bit tough, you could think about having olive oil through the hip joint. So you get that sort of constant, continuous, smooth movement. Hand on the top hip. Sometimes I literally keep pushing it away so that my trunk feels really long. We're lifted in those bottom obliques. That top shoulder's down and away from the ears. Let's do 3, 2, support the head, guys. 1, and we've got to go back the other way. So let's lift up, back and around. Keep the trunk long. If it's burning, it's cool. I always say you could carry on, and if it goes numb, you stop straight away. But if you could do at least 5 with the burn, you're doing really well. Let's do 3. Body still. Leg moving freely in the socket. 2. And 1. Relax that leg down. Bang, bang the glute if you need to. And let's do these lovely book openings, supporting the head. Let's breathe in, lift the arm up, ribs around. And then breathe out and come back through the ribs. And actually there, guys, really focusing on the rib being the movement. So through here leads the way. Keeping that top shoulder in its socket. And yawn into it. Really get that sense of like, I'm opening, reaching to the edges of this stretch. This is a bread and butter exercise. Every day. Really good before work, after work. Kind of opens out the trunk quite a lot. Let's do 2 more. Last one. And then from here, let's come to all fours. So we're going to do our neutral spine position in our all fours. So we're in our all fours position with the hands underneath the shoulders and the knees underneath the hips. And from here, we just want to make sure that our shoulders are down and away from our ears. And that also we're in our neutral position with our pelvis. So your pubic bone and navel are level. And then from here, let's imagine we've got 10 champagne glasses resting over your back. So without any loss of control, without spilling any champagne, can you send left arm and right leg out? And then bring that down to the mat and swap sides. Right arm, left leg. And bring it back down. So we're just going to keep alternating sides here. And making sure that as you're sending that arm and leg out, that your abdominals stay in, your ribs stay in. So it's a real sense of here coming up, here lifting up as you send that arm and leg out. And actually using the arm and leg that are on the floor to help stabilize you. So you could push down into the hand that's on the floor and the knee and the foot to help give you some stability. As the leg goes out, guys, just make sure that your lower back's not getting arched or pulled into an arch. And as the arm's going out, just making sure you're not dropping between the shoulders. So the head's up in line with the shoulders the whole time. Let's do 6. 5. Reach long through the spine as well. So the crown of the head forwards, the tailbone back. So you're always endeavoring to get as much length in your body as possible. You're training your muscles whilst your spine's arranged, your trunk's arranged. Let's do 2. And 1. Let's hold here with this arm and leg out, do little pumps to the ceiling. Abdominals in, ribs in. Imagine there's a hot burning flame underneath you. Don't collapse. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bring that arm and leg down. Let's go to the other side. Shoulders connect down in their sockets. Abdominals in. Let's go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And back down. Let's come into child's pose, guys. Bum down to heels. Take a big stretch forward with your arms. And make sure this isn't too sleepy. So keep your arms quite active, long. Stretch them away from the trunk. And let's take 2 breaths here. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. And 1 more. And let's come into a little bit of a side bend. So bring your hands to the left side of your mat. Put your right hand on your left hand. And stretch out long here. Take 2 breaths into your right lung. 1 more. Long, outstretched arms. And let's go to the other side. Left hand on the right. Breathing into the left lung. 1 more. And back to center. 1 more big breath. Stretch the arms out. And then slowly coming up, we've got 1 more exercise to go, and that's Swan. A really nice one to help open the chest and lengthen the front of the spine. So let's lie on your front. Bring the heel of your hands underneath your shoulders. Spread them out Elbows point back to the wall behind you. And so really thinking about going wide across the chest to allow the chest bone to lift up. We're going to do a couple of baby swans to begin with. So the shoulders widen, the chest bone lifts, and you just come up maybe a quarter of the way and then back down. And I'll just move my hair so you can maybe see if you need to. It's really coming through the mid back. The lower back's actually quite still in the beginning here. Naturally, the lower back has more ability to arch than the mid back, which is why sometimes we can find it easier to just come straight into the lower back. Whereas actually, we want to get that precision back and find the movement in the mid back first. So then it becomes a bit more evenly distributed as you move. Shoulders are widening. If you're finding that you still want to work on this, or you're feeling your lower back and you want to get a bit better at moving through the mid back, keep going at this height. And then everyone else, we're going to come up all the way. So lifting through the breastbone all the time, keeping the shoulders down, straightening your arms and coming up. So hopefully there at the top, your spine's evenly distributed in the curve. And then you bend the elbows back behind you, taking yourself back down to the mat, and then nose towards the floor. Coming back up again, chest bone leads the way. Watch your neck doesn't flick. Keep the back of the neck long. Push down into the mat. The shoulders go wide. The chest bone lifts up and forwards. Elbows go long. Come up really tall. And then bend the elbows back behind you to take yourself forwards and down. And really reach out so you're lengthening every time. A nice visual cue is to imagine you're coming up on that inside of a sphere. As you're coming up and you're trying to touch your chest on that inside wall of the sphere. And then you're coming up to sort of just where it meets the ceiling of that sphere. And then you bend the elbows and you come down on that inside wall. Elbows bend back. Your triceps, the back of the arm, should be working a little bit here. Shoulders widen, they go down. The chest bone lifts, no flick in the neck. Keep the front and the back of the neck long. Elbows bend back. Collarbones stay wide. We come down to the floor. And guys, let's do two more here. Chest leads the way. Shoulders, they go out wide. Push your hands through the floor. Let's come down, finding that inside of the sphere. Lengthening the ribcage away from the pubic bone. And one more here. Let's make it the best one. Shoulders wide. Chest lifts up. Back of the neck long. Lengthen the elbows. And let's bend the elbows. Slowly take yourself back down to the floor. And let's come up into child's pose again. One more time. Bum down to heels. Reach the arms out long. Let's take 3 breaths together, guys. And let's breathe evenly into the sides and the backs of the lungs. Really give them a stretch from the inside. Breathe in. And out. And again in. And out. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. There's a few things there to practice. Some hip dissociation, some deep core strength, and your neutral spine. A few principles, few exercises. Give them a go. They really are sort of bread and butter. So once you start getting them, you can progress on quite nicely to harder and faster exercises. If you've got any questions, comment below. I'm more than happy to help. And I hope to see you back here next time.